Hello, third graders, and welcome to our first lesson for our next 3 weeks. This week, we are going to be studying comparing and contrasting important points. By the end of this week, you will be able to compare and contrast important points from different texts, but on the same subject. Now, when we are comparing and contrasting two texts, we are looking at what is similar and what is different in those two different texts. Now, authors find similarities and differences in the people, places, or things they are writing about. They use words like these key words in the box, like, unlike, both, almost, most, but, whereas, however, similar, as well as, to, some, different, on the other hand, and yet. Those are all words that help an author compare and contrast two or more things. Now, when we are comparing and contrasting as a reader, we might use a Venn diagram. Now, you may have seen one of these in second grade. A Venn diagram uses two circles to compare and contrast a topic. There are also a couple of questions that we ask as readers to help us compare and contrast whatever we're reading about. Some of those are, what is being compared? What are the topics? How are they similar? And how are they different? Now, we're going to practice this in just a minute, but let's look at our Venn diagram first and look at the different parts. So the two parts on the outside that do not cross over are the contrasting parts. That means that they are different. Contrast, I want you to think of like contrasting colors. So that's like opposite colors on a color wheel. You may have looked at that in art at some point. They are contrasting. So let's give this a different color. The outside are contrasting. Another one out here for contrasting. Contrasting means that they are different. What is different between these two topics? The middle part is where we compare the two topics. Comparing means what is the same. That's where we compare them. So maybe you would compare your two favorite sports, what you like about both of them. That would be in the comparing part. Okay, so once again, in the middle, you write about both of them, how you are comparing them. On the outsides, you are contrasting. What is different between these two topics? That is on the outside of the Venn diagram. Let's go to the next page and we will practice. Your materials for this section, you will need your whiteboard or a piece of paper, your whiteboard marker, maybe a tissue to erase. If you're using a piece of paper, you will need a pencil, a pen, or something to erase with that. Go ahead and pause if you need to go grab those materials. All right, before we begin, we are going to write out our Venn diagram. Now, I want you to make really, really big circles for this one, okay? So my first circle, I'm going to make sure starts kind of in the middle and goes all the way to the outside, nice and big. There we go. And my second one, I'm going to start kind of on the other side of the middle, go all the way to the outside, also making sure that it's nice and big. I want to have enough room that I can write in the comparing part and both of the contrasting part. Okay. Now we're going to read about two different topics. Topics are what a story is about. As you can see, our two topics are vertebrates and invertebrates. Those are our two topics. At the bottom, you can see that they added the heading on top of those sections. We're going to do that same thing on our Venn diagram. So we're going to write vertebrates and underline it. And then invertebrates. And then underline it. In the middle, you can just write both. And then underline both. Middle, we are comparing. The outside, we are contrasting. The middle is the same. What's the same about both of these topics? The outside is what is different about these two topics. Now, as we're going through this, do not erase because you're going to have to take a picture and put it on Classkick. Do not erase this because you're going to have to take a picture of it. All right, let's go back and we are going to read through our two topics. Let's start at the very beginning. Directions. Using two informational texts, complete the graphic organizer. Our Venn diagram is a type of graphic organizer. Many different animals share our planet with us. Many are alike and many are different. Scientists classify animals based on their similarities. One way scientists group animals is whether or not those animals have a backbone. So that's like on the back of your spine. If they have a backbone. Some animals do, some animals don't. Let's read the vertebrates. Animals that have a unique backbone fit into the category of vertebrates. I'm going to highlight that. Unique backbone. They make up a small part of the animal kingdom. Some animals, like dogs, cats, birds, lizards, fish, and humans, have backbones. These are examples of vertebrates. These animals have a skeleton inside their bodies that is made of bone. Their brain is covered by a skull. These animals are usually big in size. They are usually able to move fast. Vertebrates live in a variety of habitats. Their bodies allow them to adapt to different environments. Now let's read about invertebrates. Now, if you are following along with me, I would like you to have both screens open. So I want you to have your Classkick open on one side of your iPad and then our video on the other side. So as you're watching, you can highlight with me. As you're watching, I would like you to highlight with me. All right. Invertebrates. Most of the animal kingdom fits into the category of invertebrates. These are animals that do not have a backbone. Animals such as squid, worms, bugs, and clams do not have backbones. These are examples of invertebrates. Invertebrates are usually smaller and slow-moving. Without bones, their bodies are not as strong. They do not move as easily. Invertebrates live in a variety of habitats. They can be found anywhere from caves and deserts to forests and oceans. Now that we have read both parts, we are going to highlight some things that we're going to put in our Venn diagram that we just drew out. Let's use green for vertebrates. And I want to highlight two things that are different from invertebrates. So we know that at the beginning, it says that vertebrates have backbones. Now, why is that different than invertebrates. I'm going to choose pink. Invertebrates do not have backbones. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in my Venn diagram. Get your pen or your marker ready. Vertebrates, and I'm going to make a bullet point, which is just a dot. I'm going to write have backbones. Now I noticed that mine didn't fit in there very well, so I'm going to erase it or just wipe it off with my finger and write it a little bit smaller. Have backbones. Have backbones. Make sure that you have that written. If you need to pause, you may pause. Invertebrates are different. They contrast because they do not have backbones. Go ahead and write that down. If you need to pause, you may pause and then come back to the video. All right, let's see what else is different between vertebrates and invertebrates. I remember them saying something about how they move. In the third paragraph, it says that vertebrates usually are able to move fast. Because they have a backbone, they are able to move fast. Now, why is that different than a vertebrate? Than an invertebrate, sorry. Invertebrates do not move as easily. They move much slower. So now we're going to go back to our Venn diagram and add those contrasting points. So vertebrates can move fast. And invertebrates move slow. Now I want to go back and see what is similar. How can I compare these two things? Now I need to think of the big topic. What are they really talking about? And maybe I can look back at the top to see if it gives me any clues. I see that both of these are talking about animals. Animals. So if I'm comparing both of these, I can say that animals can and cannot have a backbone. If I was comparing these two texts, I could write, it's all about animals. For your assignment today, you will need to find 1 to 2 more contrasting points to add to our Venn diagram. Why else are vertebrates and invertebrates different? Make sure you look in the paragraphs and highlight your evidence to find the contrasting points. Once you are finished with that, you will take a picture and put it on the following page. You'll take a picture of your whiteboard or your paper and put it on the next page. Now, before I let you go, I want to go back and look through the most important things about contrasting and comparing a text. Now, authors use these to show how people, places, and things are different or similar. They use keywords such as like, unlike, both, all of these inside this box to compare them. Those are comparing and contrasting words. When you're trying to think about what is similar and what's different, you can ask these questions. What is being compared? How are they similar? How are they different? And we'll continue comparing and contrasting texts for the next 3 weeks of our cycle. Go ahead and you may finish your assignment and then turn it in by taking a picture.